Greetings, fellow Dungeon Delvers, and welcome to DORAN'S, where we work together to come up with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition builds for your favorite League of Legends champions. Today we're building Neeko, the Curious Chameleon. Neeko is a Vastaya of the now extinct Uvi cat tribe, who is known for her insatiable curiosity. She's the last of her people, the only survivor of the destruction of her homeland. While fleeing, she stowed aboard a passing ship that took her to Heraldport. Arriving at the city overwhelmed her with new sensations and the possibilities of meeting and learning about these new creatures. Unfortunately, she was spotted by a Vastayan sailor. Thinking that they were of cousin species he would be open to her, she attempted to interact. The Vastayan didn't appreciate Neeko's attention, and his dark thoughts made Neeko's empath abilities flare in warning. She fled to the jungle outside of the city and eventually ran into some jungle cats. Finding a sense of home with them, she took on the shape of the cats and lived with them for a bit. The leader revealed herself to be Nidalee. Neeko sought out Nidalee's aid to rebuild her homeland in a new tribe. Nidalee refused. But Neeko was undeterred and set out to make her visions a reality. Before we get started with the build, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button so you're always notified when we release our builds. We'd like to thank one of this month's DORAN'S Blade patrons, Weaverin. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to us. Weaverin chose Neeko to build as part of the rewards for our Blade Tier patrons. Speaking of Blade Tier rewards, this month's homebrew is Ascent to the Radiant Summit, based on Mount Targon. We released last month's homebrew, Into the Frozen Tundra, onto DM's Guild if you're interested in seeing that content. Come join us on Patreon for some awesome rewards, including monthly homebrewed content. Alright, now let's get into it. First, let's cover the goals of this build. Neeko is an uber-curious shapeshifter with a love for taking on the forms of others. Her ability to shapeshift comes in a few forms, so we'll need to make sure we have those covered. Finally, we need to be able to unleash the wrath of nature. For a race, we're going to go with Changeling. Vastaya are normally going to be shifters, but Neeko is part of a very unique tribe with special abilities, so we're good here. Changelings have a +2 to Charisma and a free point for us to choose. We're going to take Wisdom for reasons that'll become obvious in a minute. Most importantly, we get the Shape Changer feature. As an action, you can reshape your body and voice to whatever you want, as long as it has the same basic arrangement of libs. So, bipedal, humanoid, and your size cannot change. You can stay in this form of yours until you use an action to shift back, or you die. Our final Changeling feature is some skill proficiencies. We're going to pick up Deception and Persuasion, which will help you in the event that people are catching on that you're not who you say you are. For background, we're going to go with Far Traveler. At this point, Neeko has gone far from her original home and has experienced quite a bit. You gain proficiencies with Insight and Perception and the All Eyes on You feature. While you're in your natural form, people are naturally interested in such an exotic creature, which you can leverage with your high charisma to your advantage. For stats, we're just going to let you roll them. Sorry about that. Someone that looked and sounded just like me tried to get on the mic and say something crazy, but I took care of them. As usual, we're going to be using the standard array. You can roll if you want to, but we'll need at least a 13 in Wisdom for multi-classing purposes. Speaking of Wisdom, we'll kick things off there. In her travels and surviving the death of her people, Neeko has learned quite a bit in the ways of the world. Charisma is going to be next. Her cheeky attitude and endearing curiosity often makes the world take quite a liking to her. After that, we'll choose Dexterity. She is nimble of feet and mind, and as a shapeshifter has to constantly think on her toes. For our 12 score, we'll pick up some Constitution for a little bit more health and assistance with our concentration. Intelligence is going to be average, because Neeko isn't dumb, but she's not a Piltover scientist either. And finally, we'll dump Strength. Neeko isn't really going to need it anyways. For equipment, I'm going to recommend picking up a club or quarterstaff. I'm aware Neeko doesn't use a weapon in-game. However, a lot of your bonus damage features rely on melee weapon attacks, and we'll need one of those to enable a cantrip to offset our lack of strength for landing those strikes and doing some decent damage. Alrighty, let's kick off our class breakdown with some levels in Druid. Druids have a D8 hit die and proficiencies with light and medium armor as well as shields. But Lord help you if even a scrap of metal exists on those things. I'm just kidding. I think that's an absolutely silly restriction unless it's something your character believes in. We also get to choose 2 Druid skill proficiencies. We're going to go with Nature and Animal Handling. Similarly to the Thieves' Cant for rogues, Druids pick up the language of Druidic, which is used to craft hidden messages. And finally, we have our level 1 spells. Remember, we're only going to focus on the Neeko specific ones for this video. We're going to pick up a cantrip and 2 level 1 spells here. For our cantrip, we'll take Shillelagh. This is going to let us imbue the wood in our weapon from earlier, allowing us to use wisdom for attack and damage rolls rather than strength. The damage die increases a d8 regardless, and the weapon is considered magical for overcoming resistances. Our first level 1 spell is going to be our E, Tangle Barbs, in the form of Entangle. Entangle generates weeds and vines that turn a 20-foot square into difficult terrain, and any creature in that spot when it's cast has to make a strength save or be restrained. To entirely capture the flavor of Neeko's spell, you could ask your DM to allow you to limit the spell to a 20-foot line 5 feet wide, but that's up to their discretion. Our other level 1 spell is going to be the damage portion of our ultimate Pop Blossom as Thunder Wave. You jump and fire off a wave of thunderous energy, forcing a con save on each creature in a 15-foot cube. Any failed saves take 2d8 thunder and are pushed back 10 feet. It's not exactly stunning them, but it definitely works. Second level druids pick up their iconic Wild Shape ability, which allows them to shapeshift into beasts they've seen twice per rest. There's a very specific table with restrictions, so keep those in mind, but ask your DM to stat out a Scuttle Crab for you and some of the jungle mobs for some awesome flavor. Druids at this level pick their druidic circle to become a member of. We're going to choose Circle of Spores. Now here's a little disclaimer for this choice. There's going to need to be a hair of reflavoring here. Instead of the spores being deathly and destructive, work with your DM to have them be revitalizing and natural. Mechanically it should still function the same way, but the way it's represented in-game could be different and really work for Neeko's abilities. Spore Druids pick up 2 features here. Halo of Spores is going to be our Q, Blooming Burst. When a creature moves into a space within 10 feet of you, you can use your reaction to throw your spores at them, forcing a con save. If they fail, they take 1d4 necrotic damage, which scales based on your druid level. Right now it's only going to work up to 10 feet, but we'll get an improvement to it in a few levels that'll really make it shine. Symbiotic Entity allows us to burn a wild shape charge to empower your spores, granting a few abilities. You gain 4 temporary hit points, your Halo of Spores damage gets rolled twice, and your melee attacks deal an extra 1d6 of poison damage. These benefits last for 10 minutes, or until you lose those temporary hit points. We'll be combining the extra poison damage here and the feature we get later for the passive damage on our W. Level 3 Druids get second level spells. We're going to pick up another version of our Tangle Barbs with the Hold Person spell. Force a wisdom save on a humanoid creature you can see, and if it fails, it's paralyzed, letting you walk up and get those guaranteed crits with your Symbiotic Entity and Shillelagh. 4th level Druids get the first ability score improvement of the build. We're going to get the extra movement speed granted from our W with the Mobile feat. This has a few benefits. Our speed increases by 10 feet, while dashing, difficult terrain doesn't cost extra movement, and as long as you at least attempt a melee attack on a creature, you do not provoke opportunity attacks from that creature for the rest of your turn. We also get our first Wild Shape improvement. You can now have a swimming speed and shapeshift into creatures up to 1/2 CR. Level 5 Druids get 3rd level spells. We reviewed the list, but none of these spells are really Neeko specific, so feel free to fill in here as you'd like. 6th level Spore Druids unlock Fungal Infestation. This isn't very Neeko-like, but we'll go over it because it could be roleplayed well. You use your spores to reanimate a corpse and give it the zombie stat block and 1 hit point for an hour. It takes its turns immediately after you do and can only take the attack action. You can use this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. Level 7 Druids get 4th level spells. We'll take freedom of movement here as Cleanse. You touch a willing creature and for the duration it ignores difficult terrain, can't have its speed reduced, and can't be paralyzed or restrained. You can also spend 5 feet of movement to escape non-magical restraints and grapples. And you ignore underwater movement penalties. This spell is very powerful and it doesn't require concentration. 8th level Druids get another ability score improvement. Now that we have our feat, we can just go straight into stat bumps. We'll start with Wisdom, since it's our spellcasting ability with 2 points. We also get another Wild Shape improvement. Now you can choose a beast with a flying speed and your CR restriction moves up to 1. Level 9 Druids get 5th level spells. There are some really powerful spells here, but none really specific to Neeko, so we're gonna have to pass unfortunately. 10th level Spore Druids get Spreading Spores. Now we'll really get our Blooming Burst. While Symbiotic Entity is active, you can throw your spores up to 30 feet away to sit in a 10-foot cube for a minute. Whenever a creature moves into the cube or starts its turn there, it takes your Hail of Spores damage unless it makes a con save. While the cube's up, you can't use your Hail of Spores reaction, and if Symbiotic Entity drops, so does the Spore Cube. Level 11 Druids get 6 level spells. We'll pick up Heal here, and if you can't figure out the summoner spell we're replicating, I'm concerned. Heal lets you choose a creature within 60 feet, giving it 70 hit points and ending blindness, deafness, and any diseases affecting it. 12th level Druids get another ability score improvement. We're still on the stat bump hype train, so we'll grab 2 more points into Wisdom to max it out. Alrighty, now that we've got all of our nature-like ability, it's time to pick up the more tricky ones with some leveling Cleric. Clerics have a D8 hit die and give us no new proficiencies. Clerics choose their divine domain at this level. We're going to go with the Trickery domain. This gives us Blessing of the Trickster, which gives any willing creature we touch advantage on stealth checks for an hour. Second level Clerics get Channel Divinity, and 2 options to use it with once per long rest. The first option that all Clerics get is Turn Undead. Any Undead within 30 feet of you needs to make Wisdom saves. If they fail, they're turned. For a minute, or until they take damage, they have to move as far away from you as they can for each of their turns. Our domain-specific Channel Divinity is Invoke Duplicity, which is going to be our W, Shape Splitter. As an action, you create a perfect illusion of yourself for a minute. Your spells can be cast from the illusion, and whenever you're both within 5 feet of a creature, you have advantage on attack rolls against it. Level 3 Clerics get 2nd level spells. We actually don't need to pick any spells besides the ones we get from the Trickery domain. The more important of which is Mirror Image, which is yet another version of our W. This lets you create 3 illusions of yourself that duplicate your actions, confusing your enemies and letting you roll a d20 to have attacks hit a duplicate instead of you. 4th level Clerics get another ability score improvement. To help our duplicitous ways, we'll take 2 points into our Charisma. Level 5 Clerics improve their Turn Undead with Destroy Undead. Any Undead failing the turn save is destroyed instantly if their CR is 1/2 or lower. 6th level Trickery Clerics get another Channel Divinity called Cloak of Shadows. As an action, you can become invisible until the end of your next turn, though it drops if you attack or cast a spell. Level 7 Clerics pick up 4th level spells. We're going to take Dimension Door here, which functions as the Teleport Summoner spell. You're able to teleport anywhere within 500 feet, as long as you can accurately see, visualize, or describe it. You can also bring a willing creature along for the ride. 8th level Clerics get an ability score improvement. We're going to max our Charisma here with 2 more points. We also get Divine Strike, which lets us add 1d8 poison damage to any weapon attack once per turn. We can combine that with our Symbiotic Entity damage for the passive damage on our E ability. Alright, now that we've completed the build, let's see how we did. First, the good. Neeko is able to wrap up and blast her enemies away with nature's power. Not only that, but she can make her enemies see whatever she wants, making them unable to trust their own eyes. We also got to max out 2 ability scores, which makes life a lot easier, especially when we use the standard array. Now the bad. We're a little squishy, with only 120 hit points on average, and we're also relying on your DM being willing to slightly modify the circle of spores. If they don't, you can still use the build, it'll just be a little darker version of Neeko than what's portrayed in the game. So, what'd you think? I've included a link to this build via D&D Beyond in the description below, as well as Amazon links to the books used in the build. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have a few awesome rewards, including access to our Discord community and monthly homebrew releases. We plan on churning out 1 League Champion build every week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you on the Rift, or in the Forgotten Realms.